On March 7, 2021, a terrible event happened in Kherson. In the afternoon, a girl literally dissolved before the eyes of the locals. For 4 days, the whole country watched hundreds of volunteers and police searching for Masha Borisova, a 7-year-old resident of the village of Schaslyve, who had gone missing near Kherson. On the 5th day, her body was found in a sack in an abandoned barn. Before we begin, I want to ask you not to forget to put a like after viewing and write your opinion on the case in the comments. Like you put not a terrible story and me for the work done. The girl disappeared on March 7. In the evening, she was playing on the street with other kids and, according to them, from time to time ran out to the bus stop to meet her father. He lived separately but sometimes came with gifts. That day, he promised to congratulate her on March 8th. However, later during the search for the suspect, the father denied that she ran out to the bus stop, which reduced to the fact that it was done by someone from the locals, as Masha's parents claimed. When the girl didn't return home in the evening from a walk in the yard, where she had been running with neighborhood kids and her 10-year-old brother, her mother went looking for her. But neighbors said they had only seen her in the afternoon, when she and other kids in the vegetable garden were burning a fire and baking potatoes. By evening, most of the children had scattered to their homes. Masha's 10-year-old brother returned, but without his sister. Where the girl had gone, the boy could not tell. He had not seen her, and she did not tell him anything. Later, neighbors joined the search and then the police. The next day, volunteers and sinologists arrived, as it was necessary to go around the entire village, which is home to about 1,500 people, as well as the surrounding area. Within a radius of 10 kilometers, the loss was discovered around 6 o'clock in the evening. The first few hours, the child was searched for independently, and at 8 o'clock of the same day appealed to the police. Masha was put on a wanted list. The police questioned about 600 people in the village, some using polygraphs. They questioned bus drivers who passed through the village. The service dog took the girl's trail and brought her to the bus stop, and then her trail broke. True, as already mentioned, the father said that the girl could not have waited for him at the stop, because he never got off at this stop when he came to visit, and Masha did not know where he worked, respectively, and from where he would appear. The police did not rule out that the schoolgirl could have gotten into someone else's car and been kidnapped, or she ran away from home. The village said that Masha was very open and trusting, easily communicating with strangers. Rescuers combed the nearest wooded areas and the North Crimean Canal, which passed nearby. They used thermal imaging cameras and ecolocators. Volunteers distributed announcements in social networks. On the 4th day of March 11th, the search yielded nothing and they wanted to wrap it up. But suddenly they found the girl's body. The white bag was found by a resident of the village of Schaslyve. He said that he came to prune grapes to his shed, an old, dilapidated structure with no roof, and behind it he saw a body bag. The girl was in the same clothes she was last seen in, a jacket, boots, and pants. She had visible strangulation marks and scratches on her neck. Forensics later determined that the girl had been strangled by hand. On her clothes were found traces that looked like a man's semen. Molecular biological examination continued. Before that, the shed had been searched several times. There was nowhere to hide the body, so it became clear that the bag could have been planted afterwards. It followed that Masha's executioner was in the village, and she was deprived of her life there as well. Later, the police reported that the deceased had been abused. This is evidenced by the injuries on her body. 2 days after the body was found, the police identified the suspect. He turned out to be a 62-year-old local resident who lived next door to the girl's father. He was detained on the day of Masha's funeral for the basis of the version that Masha took the life of someone from the locals. The circle of suspects included many residents of the village, including members of the family of the deceased. Dozens of people went through lie detectors. In the end, the police came on the trail of a 62-year-old man with a previous conviction. He attended the girl's funeral, as did the rest of the neighbors. When police went to his home on March 14th, they found him with slashed veins, but gave him medical attention and pumped him up. The man survived. The very massacre as a way to avoid punishment. There will not be this. Save this subhuman to answer for his actions. Commented on the incident the head of the national police. Some volunteers say that they had suspicions and that the detainee was not involved in the search for the girl. At the same time, some believe that the man could have cut his wrists, fearing that such a terrible crime would be pinned on him, and even those who had been convicted under such an article Detained on March 14th, on suspicion of the massacre of 7-year-old Masha Borisova in Kherson region, had previously been convicted for serious bodily injury. According to the investigator, the 62-year-old man was released from prison in 2005. He had been criminally prosecuted for hooliganism and for inflicting grievous bodily harm and medium bodily harm. It is known that the detained man lived on the same street as the girl. According to eyewitnesses, he even attended her funeral. To arrest the suspected perpetrator, investigators had to meticulously gather evidence and obtain preliminary expert conclusions. The investigator noted, residents of the village also reported that other children from the street had previously complained about harassment by the suspect, and although these reports were made to the police, no action was taken due to insufficient evidence. According to forensic analysis, the girl died on March 7th, and for 4 days the perpetrator hid her body under his bed, as he later confessed during interrogation. Only after the search operations in the settlement were called off did he secretly remove and dispose of the body. Masha was buried on March 13. Several hundred people attended the funeral, including villagers who didn't even know the family. Masha had been eagerly awaiting gifts for March 8th. She never received them. Her parents didn't spoil her. Her father had left the family several years earlier and didn't have a steady job, just occasional and seasonal work. He drank. Her mother also drank. Guardianship of the children was officially transferred to their grandmother, with whom they lived and who also worked. No, the children weren't hungry or dirty. They were clean and neatly dressed. They went to the same school as my children. The older brother used to walk his sister to school hand in hand, said a resident of Schaslyve. We are working step by step to reconstruct the timeline of events for nearly every resident to understand who else might be involved in this crime. We're mapping their names, entering data into diagrams, and checking whether they could be connected to the crime. It's extremely meticulous work, and we revisit some individuals 2, 3, even 4 times if necessary. A number of samples were taken for molecular analysis to determine DNA profiles, said the head of Police Department Number 2 of the Kherson City Police to journalists. The results were expected by March 17th. Only after expert conclusions would there be grounds to charge the person whose DNA matched the biological material found on the victim's body. The neighbor came under police scrutiny for a reason. On the day of Masha's funeral, he came to say goodbye to her. And while the priest was performing the service in the yard, the neighbor slit his wrists. Later, media footage appeared showing a woman giving an interview with the accused standing beside her. At that time, he was helping volunteers search for Masha. Before this incident, Masha's father had visited the neighbor and they drank together. Masha knew this and on March 7th ran over to ask if her father was there, whom she had been waiting for. Her father wasn't there, but the neighbor was drunk, and he couldn't restrain himself. He attacked the girl, who had entered his house on her own. When the accused was brought in for investigative reenactments, an enraged crowd of locals was ready to lynch him in front of the officers. However, law enforcement managed to calm the crowd. The pre-trial investigation continued, but the position of the investigators and prosecutors was firm. Authorities insisted on life imprisonment. On April 23, 2021, the man's body was found in his cell. He waited until his cellmate fell asleep, wrapped a rope around himself and took his own life. In the cell, officers found a note in which he asked his daughter for forgiveness and wrote that he was innocent and that his testimony had been forced out of him. But forensic analysis indicated that the male semen found on Masha's clothing belonged to him. The criminal case against the accused was closed due to his death. Be sure to share your version of events in the comments and don't forget to like for my efforts on this terrible topic.